Hi, my name is Dave Reske, CEO of Now Speed Marketing, and welcome to this edition of Marketing in the Now, where we talk about the best ideas in digital marketing. And my guest today is Kevin Dougherty, the CMO of NeuraPoints, which provides a cognitive framework that visualizes human thinking using 5 core brain process patterns. And I'm sure we're going to learn a lot more about all of that in this conversation. But Kevin,
Sure.
welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, David. I'm glad to be here, and I look forward to having a great conversation with you today.
Yeah, well, I want to know more about this brain stuff that NeuraPoints does. Well, maybe we'll talk about that later. But you and I have been
Sure.
having a great conversation about what it's like to be a CMO and some of the
Yes.
challenges in today's world. And, I was thinking about the role of the CMO, and one of the cliches that people talk about is that it's the shortest tenure role in the C-suite, right? So it's the
Mm-hmm.
more turnover in CMOs.
Mm-hmm.
And we live in a world today where there's tons of data, and CMOs are famous for making data-based decisions. And you and I have been talking
Yes.
about this idea about how to trust your gut as a CMO. And tell me your perspective on that. Why is that important to you?
Well, I'm not dismissing the value of the metrics that can be gathered through our marketing endeavors and activities, but I've just learned I've been in the business now for 26 years. So I started as a teacher and a principal, and then I got into education, ed tech sales. And when I first got into sales, we had no marketing department. So you were the marketing department as the salesperson. So you were boots on the ground marketing. And one of the first things that you discover is what are the pain points and how do you discover that through lots of conversations, lots of time spent with people, and really listening to them very thoughtfully. And so that helps to shape your understanding of your audience, the people that you're marketing to. And there have been times in the course of my career, especially, in more recent years where I've been more tightly focused on the marketing side of things, that I realized everyone has an opinion when it comes to marketing. And I guess I never realized that before because I was a little more autonomous. But when you're in a marketing leadership role, everything that you say, everything that you do is subject to some level of, uh, you know, critique or, a different viewpoint or whatever, which I welcome all of that. But the challenge that I see with it in a chief marketing officer role is we've got to move forward. It's like the worst decision to make in a leadership role is to make no decision. So if you're spending all your time trying to get everything just perfect, and even when you do, based on whose perspective is it perfect, you don't do anything. You get nothing accomplished. So that's why I have been moving more and more toward trusting my gut. I've been in this business, educator, serving educators 42 years. I should know something by now about my audience and who I'm serving, and that should be reflected in my marketing efforts.
Yeah, wow. You've said so many things there. We're going to kind of unpack those things really one at a time here. But
Yes.
one of the things you talked about was that, everybody has an opinion. And I think that's a leadership style. And I think maybe the CEO can encourage that or shut it down, right? So it
Sure.
depends on the leadership structure and the team and maybe the relationship with the board, right? But
Yes.
it is one of the things that is difficult about today's marketing environment. There's almost an infinite number of things to do. Do we spend our limited dollars on paid advertising? Do we take out a billboard? Do we hire a PR firm? Do we invest in generative engine optimization, the leading edge, and try to influence
Yes.
the AIs? Do we invest in MarTech and hire more content writers? I mean, there's just an infinite number of ways to go to market and spend money, and then offers and strategy. Like
Yes.
it's kind of wild. Like so every these opinions that that there's always a new. Hey, I just talked to my buddy and he's tried this thing and it was really cool, and we got to do it.
Yes.
We got to bet the farm on it. Like how do you kind of
Yes.
shut that down or kind of wrestle the bear to the ground and get the organization focused on one thing, right?
Absolutely. Well, and the thing is, none of us has all the answers. So maintaining some level of openness to that feedback, I think, makes us better in our role. So I don't know that I would be comfortable with it being totally shut down. But especially when you're working with a really small budget and you're trying to get the word out there, you're really just having to use everything in as scrappy and as consistent a way as possible. So first of all, you don't have the funds to do it in a hyper polished way. You don't have the luxury of time because you're trying to lift something off the ground in a startup. So just got to be out there and build that brand awareness. And the other side of this is being seen as a value add organization. That's what we're about. We're here to add value to the people that we serve. And so, whatever we do marketing wise, is it reflective of value or are we just looking for a sale?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, let's go back to basics. You said something very powerful in that, when your early days in sales, you learned a lot about the customer. And, fast forward many years, how does that experience really translate into the CMO role? Should the CMO be out there talking to market research companies? Should they be talking to salespeople? Should they be talking to customers? How deeply should their personal knowledge be of the individual needs of individual customers?
Well, I think if you're able to do it, it's always better if the person leading marketing is talking directly to the customers.
Hmm.
Of course, a sales team is going to see the marketing team as their support. They're leaning on you to help generate more leads and build greater brand awareness and interest and so forth. So you want to listen to them and support. But again, there's another case where not two salespeople are alike. So they're all going to have their own thoughts and opinions and ideas about what marketing should be doing to support. And again, I'm not dismissing that. But as the person leading marketing, if I'm having direct contact and building relationships with the customers in the field, then I'm much better equipped to respond to that when that feedback comes. And say, well, when I was at this conference and talking to these superintendents, these principals, these directors, this is what I'm hearing. So are you hearing something different than that? Gives you a lot more credibility, in my opinion, if you can bring that to the table in a marketing leadership role.
Yeah. And then if you do want to go out with more structured market research or other market tests, it kind of
Sure.
lets you know which direction to take that instead of just looking for some generic feedback on what's
Yes.
going on. Yeah.
Yes.
One of the most powerful things I've seen in marketing, especially with CMOs, is when CMOs can, CMOs have a lot of responsibility, right? They have to execute campaigns. They have to think about like strategies. They got to think about budget allocation. But one of the most powerful things is coming up with the big idea, the differentiator, the offer, the thing that makes us different, it's like a force multiplier. And
Yes.
so many times I see CMOs take the average way of like they kind of delegate the idea of the offer or the differentiator. Talk to me about like what you've learned about how to come up with that big idea that can really um, engage the marketplace in kind of a unique way. And is that a uniquely human thing, or can we use AI to come and say, "Hey, give me the big idea here"?
Well, I I use AI as a thought partner on a daily basis, multiple times a day. So I definitely think AI can help with that. For me personally, I also have an extensive background as a performer. I've been on stage, and it's funny because I don't think I realized just how valuable that experience would become for me later in my life in different roles. But as a person who is an actor who's on a stage performing, you're constantly uh, seeking to get a certain reaction or response from your audience. And so I think it's that creative, sort of artistic background that helps, at least in my instance, to be able to come up with something that is has that wow factor that really grabs people's attention. Um, and I think the other side of that is taking the time. If you're too engaged in tasks and getting things accomplished, and you don't stop and allow time for reflection because the best ideas come during that time when you are not focused on a bunch of different tasks, but you're really just taking the time to deeply think and reflect. And so that's what's been incredibly helpful for me is to just be mindful of that and not beat myself up because I'm not, crossing more things off my to-do list in the course of that day.
Yeah, it is challenging. You obviously got to get those to-dos done, but if you don't take time for the really important, um, you're going to miss something. So I think that's a super important thing. I love what you said about the wow factor, and probably it feels like the most important thing the CMO can do is come up with that wow factor, that differentiator, that big idea, that campaign, the blockbuster. And if they can't come up with that, maybe they can research or hire an agency, or they can engage more creative people to do that. But at least they'll know if it's good or not, right? And
Yes,
that's part of what the CMO's job is, right? Even if you're not coming up with the original idea of your team is, your agency is, or somebody else is, you've got to
sure.
know, you've got to decide if that thing is really going to work. You've got to make the bet
Yes.
on that thing. So is it, when you have that big idea, the differentiator, the idea, the campaign, whatever you're betting on, is it your insight with the customer that is the key to knowing whether it's good? Is it your understanding of the industry? Is it the years of experience? How do where does CMOs get that confidence to say, yeah, this is what's good. We're going to go with this is what's going to make us win. This is how we win, right? How do they
Yes.
get there?
That's a great question. And I don't know that there's one set pathway to achieve that result. Interestingly, in my last role, I was a chief strategy officer. And as
Hmm.
part of that role, I oversaw the marketing department. And so I hired a person to manage the marketing activities prior to me leaving to come to this role. And she was mid 20s, finished college in a couple of years, marketing degree, incredibly intelligent, very thoughtful, very productive. And so what really worked well was our two personalities together helped to get some really great things accomplished. I was, excuse me, the big picture and vision and creative, but I needed somebody by my side who could really take those and put them into action and to do so in an incredibly thoughtful, skillful way. But I've stayed in touch with this young woman and just been so impressed with her growth. So, when you talk about, is it years of experience or whatever, it doesn't hurt to have those years of experience. But if you're a true learner like this young woman is, you can pick things up pretty quickly if you really pay attention, you really listen, and you're very much of a growth mindset, which is what I got to witness in her. So, but again, it's really hard to replace the experience in the field, and that's an area she did not have that. So I was able to fill that part in because I would speak and tell stories about things. And so even though she didn't actually live it, she had some level of vicarious understanding through listening to the stories and so forth. So I would say that if you don't have the experience, if you don't have the time in the field to really truly know the customer needs, then you need to partner with whether it's an agency or an individual that can help round that out for you. And if you're someone like me who does bring all of that and is very much a big picture person, it's incredibly beneficial to partner yourself with individuals like this young woman who could, help and make sure that, everything that we envisioned was enacted.
Yeah. So you've got to be able to have the strategy, the vision, and the execution.
Execution.
Um, Coming back to trusting your gut, it sounds like you're saying that a lot of your experience and capabilities in that came from that direct customer connection and really from sales. Do you think CMOs would be better if they spent the first 6 months carrying a bag out there selling? Kind of would they be more equipped to do their job so that when they have opinions, it's grounded in the hardcore reality of making cold calls and getting rejected and learning from
Yeah.
customers directly?
Well, David, I'm not sure if that's a rhetorical question or not, uh, because obviously, if you've had that time in the field and you felt the pain, I mean, we're talking about feeling the pain of the customer. Well, if you're working collaboratively with a sales team, if you truly understand their pain, you're going to be a much better partner for them and better able to serve them than if you don't have that experience. So, yes, I would say hands down. In fact, I hadn't really thought about that until you just mentioned it. I have been in a position to hire sales marketing individuals, and I tend to lean more toward people that have the experiential background when I'm hiring because they bring that sound foundation. I remember when I was directing sales, some of my sales team would say, "Well, Kevin, we were educators. We don't know sales." I said, "No, you do know, you do know sales because you understand what the needs are of the customer. And just through having the conversations and knowing your solution, these things will happen in a manner that is anything but transactional. See, a lot of people think that this is a transactional activity. As much as they don't like the word, they think, "Oh, I'm selling. What is selling?" I think of Daniel Pink, "To sell is human." It's we're doing it every day, all the time. We're all salespeople. So sometimes I think people try to mystify what is it to be a salesperson? What is it about sales? It's called building relationships with people, knowing the solution, and connecting those dots with people. It's really not as complicated as I think we sometimes make it.
So CMOs would be better off if they could have that experience with their company, no question about it.
Hands down.
But a
Yes.
lot of them don't, and they come in at the
Yes.
top of an organization, perhaps with years of, professional experience, and they're expected to produce results at that senior level. And
Yes.
so, what are the other substitutes? How do they get that deep experience that allows them to make gut level decisions that are good? Because anybody can make gut level decisions that are bad, right?
Sure.
So we want them to
Sure.
make. We're depending on them to make gut level decisions because gut level decisions that are bad in market, say at a senior marketing level, are catastrophic for an
Yes.
organization, right? So
Yes.
you can have, there's a lot of people that are just good at shooting from the hip, and and that's not what we're talking about. We're talking
No,
about
no,
things that are
no,
grounded. So how do they,
no.
how do they do that while still maintaining that senior management role?
Well, just think of the world we live in right now. You mentioned AI and how so many of us have learned to use AI as a really helpful thought partner. Well, I'm thinking about all the access that people have. I'm very active on LinkedIn. It's how we connected, right? And so I've learned so much just by reading people's posts, articles that they put out there, listening to different podcasts. So there's a wealth of information out there, kind of like my younger marketing director learning vicariously through me about the education experience, and not just me, but other people in the company that had those experiences. Well, I think the same thing is true here. If you don't come to the table with all of that, there are a wealth of resources out there to be gathering that understanding and that knowledge base. So there's no shortage of information out there to gather. But I would encourage them to be bold too and to offer to go to a conference, go on a sales call, be proactive about that. Don't wait to be told to do it. Just say, "Hey, you know what? I really think it would be beneficial if I spent some time at this particular conference. It's close by. It's not going to cost us more money, but I really feel like I need to hear the salespeople talking to the customers or the prospects. I need to hear what the questions are, how they're responding, because I want all of that to be reflected in our marketing communication as well."
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So tools like being active on social media, connected on LinkedIn groups, reading Reddit stories, using AI as a thought partner. I found that
Yes.
AI can be a pretty helpful market research substitute. It's kind of the
Oh my
poor man's
word.
market research. Like, what are the issues in my marketplace? What is my competitor talking about? what, kind of having these conversations with AI, you can learn a lot about that. What are the offers that my competitors are going to market with? What are their strengths and weaknesses? All of that, right? What are they
Yes.
issues? Yeah. So that could be a good substitute tool, right? Even if you didn't spend those years in sales.
And an incredible time saver. I just was doing a presentation because, I'm with a startup, so I'm wearing a bit of a sales hat as well as the marketing and so forth. And had a presentation with an organization leader and some of their other staff members. But before getting on, I used ChatGPT and I just asked questions about the needs of this particular organization based on their continuous improvement plan. Well, all that's public information. Pulled it all up, gave me a summary in 2 minutes. I printed it out, and then I built some questions around that. And I just tweaked my sales deck slightly to make it more, personal and tailored to this specific conversation.
Powerful. Yeah, that's just a great way to do it. Well, talk to me about like what we're putting our gut on the line for. So you were head of strategy for a firm, now you're a CMO. What are the big decisions that you feel like CMOs need to get this base of knowledge for so they can make these decisions? What are those decisions they've got to make? Is it a series of small decisions? What are I guess I'm curious as to your opinion
Hmm.
about what the big bet the farm decisions that CMOs are asked to really wrestle with these days.
Well, I think it's more the latter. I think it's more a series of small decisions. I really can't think off the top of my head of like one big decision. Like if a leader of the marketing department could do this, that would, change everything. If I knew that, I would be a very wealthy man. But I don't have that answer. But I do think it's those smaller things along the way. One of the greatest, I think, strategies that I've discovered in any role in which I've served has been to take the time to meet with, to discuss thoughts and ideas with not only those in the field, but also those on your team, and build sort of a collective sense of what's the direction we want to go, and build that buy-in. That way, when you do make the bigger decision to spend money on, I don't know, a revamping of the website or some type of marketing material, collateral, that others have been engaged in the process and they feel like they're a part of it. They feel like they've had a voice. And then when you do step out there, yes, your name's on it. So you take the responsibility that comes with that decision ultimately. But you didn't make it in a vacuum. You did it spending the time, gathering all that information and input from others. And that takes time. And that's probably why some people don't do it, because it is a pretty time consuming aspect of the work.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point. That those decisions, you've got a lot of decisions to make, right? So if you have to do detailed research and you can't make decisions quickly because you don't have that base of knowledge, you can't trust your gut, it's going to slow things down mightily. But you're right, marketing is you got to like a lot of decisions, right?
Yes.
Campaigns, ads, content, quality, messages, right? It's a lot of stuff. So you've got to
Yeah.
be good at that. Talk to me. We just have a few minutes left, but talk to me about how you communicate with the CEO. In this environment, if you want to make a decision based on your gut, you're going to get some hard questions, perhaps, about this. Is it just as simple as saying, "No, no, no, I got this. Trust me. I know what I'm doing. I've been doing this for years. I trust my gut. You should trust my
Yeah.
gut. It's all good." So is that the kind of conversation you have? Or do you find that they're, in general, and I know we're generalizing, maybe not your
Mhm.
current CEO, maybe you're generalizing, should CMOs be prepared with more data, more, insight, if you will, to have deeper conversations? Or should they expect a relationship with the CEO where the CEO trusts their gut, trusts them to make those decisions to move forward?
Yeah. Another great question. I've been blessed to work with some great CEOs, really intelligent, thoughtful, creative people with a clear understanding of marketing themselves. So they already have a lot of experience and training in the area of marketing. So they're going to have opinions and thoughts that may be different than my own. Excuse me. But I think once again, like I just mentioned in the previous question, it's not an automatic. It's not you step into the role, even if they've known you before, and then automatically they're going to trust every decision you make and every, gut sense that you have. They're going to be like, I don't really see it, but okay, Kevin, if you think so. That's not the way it's gone for me. It's really been at first more conversation, more back and forth, right? Calibrating it with the CEO. And then as that trust builds in the CEO for you, despite whatever years of training or experience or whatever you have, they have to feel comfortable with it. And I would too if I'm in their role. So I would want to have that level of comfort. So I would say that once again, you've got to take the time to have those deeper, harder conversations and have the back and forth that's going to occur in those situations. And then, work to build that trust to where you can have a greater autonomy going forward.
Wow. So it's really a process of building that trust. You can't just come in there and say, hey, I've had all this experience. I trust my gut. You got to trust me. You got to build that relationship, have that back and forth so that they
Yes,
trust you and you can make, and then they trust, maybe they're trusting you more with the smaller decisions, then you collaborate more in the bigger decisions. And
yes,
it's a relationship you're building, a relationship based on trust. Very
yes,
powerful.
sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Kevin, this has been a great conversation. Thank you for sharing all your experience. If people want to connect with you and learn more about you or have deeper conversations about
Sure.
this issue, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Well, I'm Kevin at NeuraPoints, and it's NeuraPoints, Kevin at NeuraPoints.com. So you can reach out to me that way. I also have a podcast, Just Thinking. It's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, so you can check that out there. And I've got a Facebook group. I know a lot of people don't do Facebook anymore, but it's called Just Thinking. So you can look it up on Facebook as well. But I'm glad to have conversation with anyone at any time because I'm all about relationships. And I want to close with saying thank you for taking the time to reach out to me, David, and for this conversation today.
Thank you. Well, it's been a great conversation. I've learned a lot. And we'll link to all those things in the show notes as well. So you'll get some connections through that as well. So, Kevin, thanks again for taking the time today.
Thank you, David.